In the first round of the Tata Steel Masters, we saw Hans Niemann defeat Vladimir Fedoseev in 16 moves. We also saw Vincent Keymer defeat Anish Giri in 23 moves. Two really short games, disastrous games in fact for the losers. And by a strange quirk, in today's pairings, we had Fedoseev playing with white against Keymer. So we had one of the losers playing against one of the winners. Now, how would they face this game? Really tough for Fedoseev. It's like he's having to start the tournament all over again after that calamitous defeat. And for Keymer, well, he must have been pretty buoyed by that nice quick win against Giri. So let's take a look at what happened in round 2 of the Tata Steel Masters. Vladimir Fedoseev against Vincent Keymer. Before I get going with the game, let me say thank you very much to all of you who pointed out that Fedoseev is not an FM, as you can see here. This is just a software glitch and I haven't been able to fix it, so he is of course a grandmaster. Let's just state that. A very strong grandmaster as well. For those of you that don't know him, he's 30 years old, born and bred in Russia, but actually now represents Slovenia. He's a brave guy actually, because in 2022, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, in fact, he was playing a tournament abroad when that happened, and he decided not to return to Russia. And he now represents Slovenia. And a seriously strong player. In the 2024 Olympiad, he defeated Magnus Carlsen. So, not to be underestimated. So, let's see how Vincent Keymer would tackle this game. Of course, Vincent had a tremendous 2025 and is, well, solidly in the top 10 in the world. And we can see here that, yeah, he wants imbalance. He's played the Nimzo Indian with black, so we're certainly not going to get a symmetrical position. And Fedoseev plays Queen c2. So this is one of the most reliable ways of meeting the Nimzo. You prevent the pawns being doubled here. The queen protects the knight. And the main line here is a3, but Fedoseev went for knight f3. This is a very solid line, and after c5 he simply took and played g3. So this is a very unpretentious way of playing, very old way of playing actually. You know, this was quite popular in the 1930s. Very solid indeed. I mean, the bishop is superb on the long diagonal, really preventing black from playing b6 and bishop b7. But this is a good move. Knight e4. Black wants to double the pawns on c3, so bishop d2. Keymer grabs the bishops, and you can see that bishop is unmasked, so black can't play b6 and bishop b7. But basically, if black can solve the problem of that bishop on c8, if that can come into the game successfully, then black shouldn't have any difficulty here. I played this position once with black, and I just played d5. And actually, after this, well, I didn't have any difficulties at all. It's absolutely fine. I might equalise very quickly. But Keymer clearly wanted more tension in the position. You know, he wants a fight here, you can tell. So he played a6. And that means the queen can step out c7 without being hassled by a knight. Rook b8. And also he's looking to get in this pawn break b5. So this is absolutely typical with this kind of pawn structure, that you try and chip away at that pawn on c4, breaking down white's central position. Knight e4 from Fedoseev. And this is a very interesting moment. So we know Keymer is on a high, having won so quickly yesterday. And he decided to keep tension in the position, and he dropped the knight back to e8. Well, we'll look at that in a second. I mean, I think if he exchanges on e4 and just puts the bishop back on e7 and plays queen c7, you know, you're going to be able to bring this bishop out pretty quickly, either with b6, maybe even b5, or maybe d6 and bishop b7. And black is so solid there. But maybe he just felt there wasn't enough juice in the position, so he played knight e8. So I'm guessing he wanted to push away the knight with f5 and then kind of reset afterwards. But Fedoseev thought for over 10 minutes here and played c5. So that's quite an ambitious move. Was it a wise move? Because the pawn is slightly out on a limb. And at this moment, Keymer thought for almost 3/4 of an hour. I mean, that's extraordinary. At such an early stage, we're only on move 13. So, I mean, f5, this wasn't played, but obviously that's a critical move. If the knight retreats, then bishop takes c5. So I'm guessing Fedoseev would play a3 and then b4 and then drop the knight back. And it's not quite clear that black wants to have the pawn on f5 in this position. But I mean, it's very double-edged. But yes, if this knight could swing to c4, it might be quite attractive. In any case, after c5, Keymer played queen c7. So he's looking to maybe get at that pawn on c5. So rook c1. Now, you don't really want to take that one. I think after this, well, for example, knight here and, you know, there's a pin. So f5 from Keymer. Now, here's where it starts to get very interesting. Queen b3. Now, both players were taking their time. So if pawn takes knight, then queen takes bishop. And if bishop takes, knight takes, well, you can see that, I mean, black is pretty shut in here. I mean, this is possible to break out, but you can see that white is far better coordinated, far better developed than black. If bishop takes pawn, then knight d5 looks very nasty indeed. This knight looks superb. You know, it's gonna land on b6. So Keymer played bishop a5. Now the knight is attacked. Drop back to d2. Now, what happens on queen takes c5? Well, then knight d5 again. This unmasks the rook, and this is pretty unpleasant because, well, you can see it's getting very tactical. Now, in fact, black hasn't lost material, but in fact, material is even after that transaction. But these pieces don't look great. The bishop protects the knight. This rook might come in on d1, and you can imagine that maybe later on that pawn on b5 could become weak. So Keymer played instead b6. That's a sharp position. Right. At this moment, I think you need to have a think. I'm going to have a drink of my lovely mug of tea. So, what did Fedoseev come up with here? White to play, and I'll see you again after this message. Do you want to improve your chess? Get exclusive access to live masterclasses with yours truly? Get hot opening ideas? Then subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess, and for just $25 a month you get a newsletter with a detailed test game to gauge your standard of play, a monthly video with puzzles to test your calculating skills, a monthly opening survey where I give my take on a hot variation. Access to an archive of over 100 opening surveys. Access to video playlists so you can research your favourite openings using the PowerPlayChess archives. And as a patron, you are able to join in the exclusive live masterclasses where you can ask me questions directly. All this for only $25 a month. That's exceptional value. So do subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess. Enjoy the benefits and improve your chess. By the way, the next live masterclass exclusively for patrons will take place this Thursday evening. I look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. So let's get back to the game. Well, this next move must have come as a bit of a shocker to Vincent Keymer. Maybe he was looking at c6 here. And this does give white pretty decent compensation for the pawn, you know, if you can damage black structure here. But Fedoseev came up with something much stronger. Knight d5. So this must have been underestimated by Keymer. And he now thought for 15 minutes. This is very powerful. So Keymer ended up taking this. The alternatives really aren't great. So for example, well, what if you move the queen? What about queen d8? Well, then knight c4. You can see this pin here is very, very annoying. If pawn takes, then knight takes, and well, black's structure is completely shattered. White is going to take here. It's a dreadful position. And if bishop b7, well, you can just take on b6. And yeah, queen a7 also not great. You can take here. Knight check. That's very unfortunate. Fork. So Keymer took on d5. Queen takes d5 check. Check was blocked, and then c takes b6. So that opens up the rook, but also the bishop is attacked. This is the problem. So this is forced. Queen takes. Now the bishop is defended, but then knight c4 attacks the queen and attacks the bishop. And this is very unpleasant. Keymer scrambled around here. I mean, he could just be going a pawn down for absolutely nothing, but also with a wreck of a position. Bishop b7 played. Knight takes queen. Knight takes. Rook takes b2. Now, for the moment, material is actually even. But black's pieces are scattered here. They really don't work well. The knight is dreadful on e8. There are tactical problems on this diagonal, as we're about to see. And white is so well coordinated and has such beautiful pawns as well. So let's see rook c5. Great move. Attacking this bishop, and that's very awkward. You don't really want to put the bishop back there and then rook c8. If bishop d2, then simply e3 is super solid, just shutting out the bishop. If rook a2, now you're going to see the tactical problems because you can see all these pieces are lined up, and knight e7 actually just wins material. And bishop d5 check, picking up the rook on a2. That didn't happen. After rook c5, rook b5 played. Rook c1. So Fedoseev simply bringing all his pieces into the game. There's no need to actually play anything that's too unorthodox here. This is just about being absolutely rock solid because black's pawns are dreadful. That pawn on f5 opening up the king is not great. An exchange on b5 and bishop f1, just targeting the pawn here. g5. So Keymer looking to step up with the king, getting it off a light square. Rook c5, attacking the pawn here, but also that rook on the 5th rank looks at these pawns as well. b4, bishop c4. That's quite nasty. Now, if knight takes bishop, then we're left with a classic good knight against bad bishop, and of course that pawn is going to drop. And that's a very simple technical win for white with the outside pawn. So king g7, bishop b3. Now that is an absolute rock. So nothing can touch that bishop now. You can't touch the pawn on a2. And then knight takes pawn. So now white is a pawn up, and black's position is still a wreck. f4, Keymer trying to kind of stir things up, but Fedoseev plays super solidly. As Spassky used to play, he's playing like an oil tanker here, making sure that he has no weaknesses. He just exchanged here, and rook d4. Hitting this one and an exchange. So basically Fedoseev has left himself with these connected pawns. The king is still completely solid, well protected, and eventually that pawn on a2 is going to come into play. The great thing is you don't have to play it forward straight away, because that would destabilize the bishop. First of all, just work away on the king side, improving things. Knight d3, so that knight heading towards the king side. Knight e5, hitting the pawn here and getting close to the king as well. So all kinds of tactics arise. So for example, if rook d8 defending, I mean that's a miserable move, but white has a simple tactic, winning. h4, again, Keymer trying to split the pawns, but no, g4, of course, just keep them together. Rook d5, some nasty threats here, so the king goes back. Knight d3, so you just want to play f4 to get those pawns rolling down the board together. King h2, yep, so this one's going to be collected. Knight e5, rook h4, rook d3. And here Keymer actually resigned. It is absolutely hopeless, because you can see basically everything is protected. So that means that white can just pick off those pawns. There's really nothing to do. So for example, rook h8, knight takes d7, followed by rook takes h3, and then white is 3 pawns up. Very nice technique. Oil tanker. Those words of Spassky always stick in my mind. Really good technique from Vladimir Fedoseev, who bounces back after his 16-move defeat from yesterday. For Keymer, well, that was very disappointing, and you can't help feel that 98 was just a bit too much. I mean, of course, it's not a terrible move, but I think it's pushing too hard from this position. I think you just have to calm down and exchange and play bishop b7, and black is super solid. Black is not worse there. So there we go. Let's just have a quick look at the standings after round 2 at the Tata Steel Masters. Well, there was only one other decisive game, and that was Nodibek Abdusatorov defeated Pragnananda. So Prag is on 0 points after 2 rounds, a shocker, and no one on 100%. 3 players sharing the lead: Niemann, Aragaisi and Abdusatorov, all on 1.5. Just a reminder again to patrons, live masterclass will take place this Thursday, the 22nd of January. I'll be sending out the Zoom link beforehand, so look out for that. And I hope to see as many of you there as possible. The theme will be winning a 1 position, something that Fedoseev did very well in this game.